Hey, I have a question. If someone asks for a receipt and you keep walking, and they walk out of the store and step in front of you and stop you, is that a detainment? Remember,
Yeah,
they're
why
stopping
wouldn't you
you.
just show them the receipt so they wouldn't have to do that?
Well, keep in mind that you're not legally obliged to show a receipt after you purchase something. It's their job to do their own homework to see if they actually have enough probable cause to call in an arrest.
Well, that's a matter with society, but yeah, I mean, if they suspect that you're stealing something and they want to verify that, there's cameras everywhere, so I'm guessing that they probably asked for a reason, and then we would probably get involved at that point from their standpoint. But
Well, keep in
I mean,
mind,
yeah. To avoid all that, it would just been easier just to show it. But yeah, I guess they are kind of detaining you until we get there and then can figure out, or whoever, hypothetically.
well, now that's just, if I recall, that's like a citizen's arrest where they actually claim that you committed a crime. So
Citizen's arrest.
You're allowed to be detained with reasonable suspicion from a non-officer.
Well, you can be arrested by a citizen, yes.
Sure, but
Right.
remember, if they're not actually suspecting you of committing a crime yet, I'm just simply walking out of the store after being requested to show a receipt, and I just simply don't show a receipt. Then they stop me,
Okay.
and
Ask you
it's
to
for a
show
brief,
that, yeah.
but they're continuing to ask. They asked as I was walking away, but then stepping in front of me. As far as I can tell, the elements of false imprisonment is where they, unlawfully detain or seize you, or what's the word? Limit your movement or whatever it is. But basically, what do you call that when they stop you outside the door without suspicion of a crime, just simply they're not showing a receipt?
Well, in their mind, I'm guessing. Obviously, I'm not exactly sure of all the
It happens
facts,
at different ones.
but in their eyes, my guess is if they're asking for, and most Walmarts are probably one of the only stores that actually have the greeters and stuff that do that. So knowing that coming in that you might get asked that'll also set precedents for courts, for court decisions, is knowing that you're going into a Walmart where they have greeters specifically designed for. Actually, I'm sorry. So does Sam's Club.
Yeah.
Sam's Club, you can't actually leave.
But that's not a public store. I've heard that. That's where that's in the contract.
Well,
Of
this
you
isn't really a
membership.
public store either. I mean, if you think about it,
It's a public-private. It's the same thing as any store,
and
right?
as long as you're in here, you're under. You got to follow their guidelines essentially. And if they wanted to, it would be bad business for them just to remove you just for the fact that you. And I'm not saying you in particular, a person in general. It'd be bad business for them to say, you know what, we don't want you here. Take your business elsewhere. But
Sure.
they could do that because this is essentially Walmart private property.
Yeah, it's a
So-
public-private. It's like skateboarding, things like that. Like it's not illegal to skateboard, but if they don't want you to skateboard there, they can give you a formal warning, and then if you continue, they can get your truck.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to figure out where the protections are, because there's a difference between stopping somebody with full knowledge or suspicion that they have committed an actual crime enough to hold them citizen's arrest, detain, so on. Whereas if I just the problem I have is that I've asked these employees what their policies are. They say that you're not supposed to stop. You can't stop unless it's the actual crime. From there, but if it's just simply ignoring receipt asking, I get stopped, physically stopped, just for ignoring the receipt requests. And they won't let me leave. In fact, that was after I was already outside the building. They won't let me leave the parking lot without stepping in front of me and changing my course of action, changing my movement. So, it's not full blown seizing you for the purpose of calling you away, but
Right.
they wouldn't let me leave unless I looked them in the eyes and said no. So I'm just throwing that out there because, I'm doing some research. It fills the elements of false imprisonment really easily, and so how the protection that they have, they say, is that they're not supposed to stop. They can only ask. So if that's the point, then why aren't they stopping?
Well, it depends on each store. The problem that they've had with the greeters and some of the security is that people have pulled knives, people have pulled guns.
Oh,
So
just a minute.
it's not that they don't their management would rather they not confront somebody, they'd rather have us
Yeah, it's all in
So-
footage. It's all there.
call. Right.
No matter
So
what.
that's what they're trying to do more of nowadays. They've kind of shied away from. And again, this isn't for everyone. I'm not painting
Yeah,
with
yeah.
one brush, but they've asked those people so they don't endanger themselves and the public not to do that, to call us. That's why we're here. If they have some suspicion as to whether you purchased something or not, I'm guessing by them asking is their version of saying
Yeah, you
we
reported
suspect.
crime.
Yeah, so
So you get to investigate, take the probable cause if you have it, and you take it for arrest so far.
well, or you know, sometimes people are just they don't want to show their receipt. And they might have legitimately purchased everything
Yeah.
and
And
been
then-
on their merry way.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't like to be that type of stinger, but the reason why I keep having to fall into that pit is because, how do I explain it? I've talked to enough of these employees now that I've asked them, okay, so what is the policy on telling people publicly that you aren't required to actually stop them? That they're not actually required to be stopped if they ever they tell me that they are strictly forbidden from telling people that. And so it kind of leaves everyone up to knowing their own rights. But then again, if I'm constantly stopped and I'm getting to the point where there's no education on that side because there's no education, then I'm having to educate everybody live not to stop me, that you need to just do your job or follow your policies that you're currently not following.
And part of the education is also you knowing that if you come into Walmart, you're probably going to be asked to show your
Well,
receipt.
that's of course.
So-
Asked is different. These people tell me specifically that they aren't allowed to stop me. They actually tell me they can ask all you want, but they can't stop me. And so if they're telling me they can't stop me, but then the occasional one,
Okay, but
doesn't.
not everything is. See, here's the problem with society. There's not one brush that paints the whole wall. Everywhere is different. Some of these employees are under that impression.
oh yeah,
So, are they told not to? Yes, because they've had the companies have told them, you know what, it's not worth the money for my employee to get shot and killed, stabbed, maimed, whatever it is. So, yeah, and we even impress upon them that, you know, if you have somebody that you suspect is shoplifting a $5 Kleenex, it's not worth it for you to go out there and confront them and get stabbed, killed, whatever. Just call the police, give a description, watch them get into their car. Nowadays, everything
hey,
is
that's good. Very nice, very nice.
so everything is. Everybody has a camera, or phone, some sort of thing. So that's what they're kind of going to now. But a lot of, and I'll be honest with you, a lot of them, and I don't even know all their policies because it switches so often. Is some of the loss prevention guys are, you know, they'll ask us to go outside, but for the most part, you're not going to give away your tactics. It's just good police work. 'Cause I'm
Yeah.
not going to give away my tactics just because you're asking about it. So that would be almost the same thing there, where they're not going to tell you that because then here you, and I'm not saying you, the next person comes in and realizes, well, they're not supposed to stop me. I'm just going to walk out and not show my receipt. That just then snowballs. This little flake has now snowballed into this big snowball where everybody now knows that the Walmart employees are not supposed to ask, detain, or do anything like that. So,
Or that's actually what the education needs to happen. Or I guess everybody needs to know their rights, that they have a right to keep walking, and they're not being told that. And then basically, Walmart has to still do its job anyway. Like, okay, here's a really good example. You hit the nail on the head earlier. There's an issue that I've seen out in the public where there is a discrepancy with the definition of solicitation versus holding a sign. Colorado Springs has been reamed there. Denver pulled back a lot of their ordinances as a result. It's protected First Amendment. You can't control the content of the sign. It's content neutral. There are municipalities.
unless it creates and incites a riot, it's different. See,
Exactly.
so-
Yeah, screaming fire in an open building. Yeah, exactly. However, what I'm finding out is that that concept of like, well, you know that when you come into a Walmart that they're going to ask for a receipt. That's not necessarily the issue, but that's kind of like a fourth quarter, kind of like a custom of the society that everyone kind of knows that.
There you go.
You
Yeah.
know? Well, the problem is that people, even cops that we find out, are stuck in these fourth courts where they've confirmed they think that it's fact. And so, for instance, people that are being taken to court right now for holding a sign, being told that it's soliciting, because effectively, that putting words on cardboard signs is effectively asking for help and wanting money. but it's not. It's not actually asking anybody. It's not interrupting anybody. It's literally the equivalent to an anti-abortionist that's seeing holding signs. Everyone just knows that that person needs money, that's looking a little lowly, but you can't say that that person that is abortionist doesn't need some help or isn't out there for the same thing, for other resources as well. And so that fourth court is where it's not an actual court that we find, but people are being charged on them. And then the confusing part is the education live. And so here I get to educate live every person that wants to stop me with their policies in the first place, not to stop. It's kind of like we see this person going to court now. They're going to have to explain to the court that soliciting isn't, or holding a sign isn't soliciting. I've been told by them that like they're talking to cops, and the cops seem to think that it's like up for debate. But that's actually not really up for debate. That's actually been completely decided in the legal realm a long time ago. Colorado Springs got rid. And so these people think that these sport courts are, you have to abide by them. But what's happening, the reason why these sport courts keep existing is because of that lack of education on the other side. No one wants to tell a person that holding a sign isn't soliciting, because then you'd have everyone out on this corner just holding signs that maybe originally were soliciting. And so it just kind of gets really...
The sign thing, you're absolutely right. If you can hold a sign, when you impede traffic, that's a violation.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
if you're having
and by going out and stepping out into the roadway,
now,
that is now creating a hazard to traffic.
Yeah, now keep in mind, we're working with this person case law-wise. They're going through a ticket in municipal court, Westminster, where they were charged with stepping out, but it was a parked car, waiting at a red light.
Stopped at a red light
for like 2.5 minutes. And so the purpose of that ticket, the purpose section says that it's to prevent delays and so on and so on. And so how, it's kind of like hitting the dark theory, like, are you really preventing a delay? Is that really obstruction to be stepping out onto a lane that is clearly full of parked cars forever? And so the case law there...
Still mobile cars, they're still in gear, so...
But what you're trying to do with preventing the delays wouldn't be matching that. The only way to truly prevent the delay would be to catch the person doing something unsafe, which would be to, say, step out when cars are moving or accept from cars that are moving. And then you could say, that's what's unsafe, that's what you need not do. But these people are being stopped saying, we need to prevent you from that occasional car that comes down the street, the old lady. But that point, that little old lady said, that's what some little old lady's not knowing the law. If you know the law and you step away, like this person does, they know to completely be perfectly safe, yet it's this due process violation. You're being charged for a future crime that someone's trying to prevent you from doing. When you almost have to let them. Like when you have reasonable suspicion and you don't have probable cause, you don't have enough information to charge it. You actually have to you almost have to observe to get to the point where it is a charge. Otherwise, you kind of charge them with a reasonable suspicion. You might be committing a crime right now. Let's stop it. We've seen that happen.
Even in a roadway is a violation, regardless of if you're standing in front of a car in a roadway that's still in gear and somebody's control over it, you're still putting yourself in peril.
Waiting at a stoplight, though, is that something that should not be decided by a jury or a judge to decide if it really is safe?
I would say that, yeah, and that's why you get summoned, and then you go and go, because I'm not a judge and I'm not the jury, so I have the laws that I follow and I enforce those laws.
As long as I understand they're kind of up for debate, yeah. We've made cops that just straight up like
my
no
point.
up for debate.
Well, and
I
will agree with you. Yeah, there are some younger cops out there that, and I was once there,
Actually, I have to say, is we've caught cops 25 years in force, not using maps.
Well, a lot of it is common sense, and again, I think a lot of these things can be avoided just by doing what people ask and going back to the receipt.
But then you got rights where you need to exercise them.
But then that creates these other issues that come along, and how are you, man? Good. Instead of just doing it, and I get where you're coming from. I totally get it. So, but sometimes there's some simple solutions to things. I get where you're with the sign on the thing. I get it. We've never had an issue. Well, I shouldn't say we've never had it. We've ran into that a few times, and there were some overzealous people. But it's a live and learn process too. You got to figure out where the judges are in terms of what their mindset is. Yeah. What juries feel is like what we're debating is a jury should be debated. It's not. I think it's unsafe
Yeah.
for somebody to be in front of a car, even though it's in gear and still under control.
Exactly.
I feel that that's
Yeah.
because I've lived the experience where I've seen drunks. There's drunks out there all the time. There's medical issues where people, even if you're stopped at a red light, they pass out, put the foot on their gas, and they can mow you over.
Yeah.
So, in my eyes, yeah, even though it's a red light, if you're out in the roadway, you're still at danger, and you're putting other people at danger, including yourself. So, but you're right.
The level of danger could be strict versus.
Well, we're not talking levels. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
this
that's
is
actually,
exactly what a jury should
yeah,
be saying.
or more or less. You actually helped me. I've been trying to word this a lot. My problem is I see a lot of juries, people thinking that they can trust juries to make legal decisions, when actually the juries are really layman people. They don't know shit. And the judges are the ones that are supposed to use already proven case law that says that there's no strict liability, that you can't, already do that based upon already founded principles.
I'm saying that the discussion is for the jurors. I'm not saying they're making legal
Yeah,
right.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm
you can
saying-
challenge that.
I'm talking about
so forth.
how they feel if it's unsafe.
Yeah.
So, because you and I can debate, as we have been just now, what's
Yeah.
safe
What
when
is
somebody's
it? How is it? So what's
right. Yeah, I'm not saying
So-
they should. They're not there to make the legal. Well, they're following the legal orders that are given to them by the judge. The legal parameters to either find somebody not guilty, or a hung jury. So,
Yeah.
but you're right. They're not the ones that should be creating the laws. Or let me take that back. Obviously, juries and the people will make the
live
laws.
case? Yeah, exactly.
But they're not. They should have the parameters set by the judge as to what those.
Yeah,
as you
the
say,
jury
strict liability. Could this fall under a strict liability offense, or is this completely illegal? So,
Yeah. Now it's funny you say that because I really wanted you to go there because I haven't gotten this far with the cop. My brother and I were up to our balls in legal stuff because of all these people and stuff that we were trying to help. We have caught cops not going through their elements. I'm telling you this because I'm trying to save you guys. Assuming that something fits, not actually going through the elements, so like secondary criminal trespassing, thinking that that fence has been up for a very long time, it must be up legally, not actually going through them. And then we've actually caught cops completely foregoing maps, private property versus public property. So we know someone that got a ticket on a private property as if it was public. When they were brought to court, the cop said something like that it's maintained. So kind of half admitted that it was a private drive, but otherwise that you have to invoke this maintained definition legally for some sort of it was a facilitated statute. Well, that's not really proving anything. So the burden of proof should still be on them. But this person actually went through and had the entire situation shifted on them. So the burden of proof, now they can't prove that it isn't maintained. The judge literally convicted them of being on a public road, on private property. They ratified practically a new law out there because they didn't do the job. So that's a judge. We've also caught the same person going through with a jury, and the jury has all these things that the cop has stacked. The cop would go through the elements, but he's just stacking it. But I warrant him, so forth and so on. Turns out that ticket was issued on a sidewalk outside of a park. The park boundaries had been attempted to be figured out by going into the parks department. That wasn't his job protocol, and it was a maintenance map, so it encroached into the right of way. And the jury, despite everything this person said, basically thought to themselves, "Oh well, it's a cop. He's been on for 25 years. The DA would not take a stupid case without looking at elements and so forth. There must be something. There must be some criminal there." And sure enough, the person got convicted without any actual evidence, being in a sidewalk, as if it's a park, which is 100% impossible to have happen. But a jury got instructed with whatever they got. So I'm scared of juries after. I think a judge is someone that you can test better. That should be held to a higher standard. So
you have that right
Yeah.
to choose a trial by judge
Exactly.
as opposed to trial by jury.
And then maybe football people don't know that they always think the jury. Everyone loves the jury. That's sports.
Well, they get told. I mean, you're right. People should educate themselves in terms of their rights and stuff. But then people try to be their own lawyers, and sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes they're right.
Yeah. Pro sayers do have a place.
Yeah, absolutely. But it just it makes everything kind of confrontational, where some of those things don't need to be confrontational.
Yeah.
And you know, in my eyes,
There's too much emotion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, hey, I get it. Maybe I felt slighted or whatever, but you can't take it personally. I don't take some, you know, like this discussion.
Yeah.
It's all good, you know.
Well, it's rare to find a cop in Walmart, so that's why. But maybe I'll leave with this. I got to get running here. But what I've noticed is where that idea of making it seem easier to police, like just let them ask for all the receipts and stuff like that. You won't be harmed by you're asking if you're innocent. If you have nothing to hide, so forth and so on, you should have nothing to show. I see it happening with people like a park curfew is the biggest example, where now the society, government is claiming that they need to otherwise take away someone's night park use rights to say that it's now easier to police because of those graffitiers and that and stuff like that. Most people now think to themselves that they have a right to have a safe park at night, but that's obviously infringing on someone else's federal rights and just being way. And so these blanket policies are victimless crimes, camping, park curfew, tree-related rule, things like that. Even DUIs where they're not caught crashing, where it's a turn signal and they head over the limit, but they're a safe driver because they're a big part or whatever. Those are all these policies where these elements aren't being followed because it's only the cop that's going out there because there's no actual victim that calls it in as like an assault. It's really easy. It's really obvious. So just watch out for these blanket policies because they lack due process and they basically bunch everyone together. So now no one can sleep outside because everyone else thinks that that's the only way to deal with like refuse. And the worst one is no one can live 5 to a house, even old people, even or unrelated people, non-students, and so forth. And so they have to do it because they're claiming that there's no other way that the city will be able to handle students other than limiting them to 3 to a house because they're unpoliceable on their noise and their parking. Come on, people are policeable. That's a 14th Amendment due process violation because now somebody who's living quietly without noise or parking violations, isn't even a student, is now my best
subject to those
standards. And so the two things. Oh man, I'm going to leave you with this. I've been trying to figure out the way to work this for. People think that they have to throw out the baby with the bathwater because there was one bad apple that ruined it for the rest. There isn't one bad apple that ruined it for the rest. You shouldn't be throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And the reason being is a perfect example. You may think, and there may very well be 9 transients on the corner that are just going to take that money, go buy some alcohol, go commit crime, whatever. But as we found, that if you don't give to that one person on the corner as if they're that innocent homeless person, that person could be that homeless person. You don't know. And that person significantly is way more expensive than if you had just simply paid off those 9 transients just to get to that one innocent person. So so I'm on the other side of that too, with all the stuff that we've had to go around. Nobody believes us because they think we're just fighting this uphill battle and then we're just the baby that whether got thrown out. And it's like, no, I'm technically fighting for everyone's rights because I think not that everyone should be using the park at night, but I think that obviously if you are in a position where you need to exercise that right and you're not breaking any rules, you're not graffitiing or doing anything, and you're just existing, then that's not really good law. It's not really fair then.
But then I would say get it repealed. Just go through the legislation and get it repealed because it is illegal to be in the curfew park.
And guess what? Some places have challenged it, and they found out that it is as long as they allow for other people like exemptions, and if there's no definitive necessary government interest, like for maintenance or something like that they actually had to let that back up for people. So here, the biggest crime that we've seen is where most people don't know their rights, homeless and people on bottom getting criminal and so forth. They don't know how to exercise their rights. They don't know how to exercise their medical rights or the due process rights. And basically, no one's case law, no one's challenging anything. So along the point where people think it's been on the books for 25 years, it's never been. Yeah, we're never going to get rid of it. It's like, no, you've been hiding your stats and getting rid of shit for 25 years. And again, going through the elements, we've caught people ticketing people in these illegal spots outside of maps, or outside of jurisdictions for years because no one exercised their right to challenge it to see what was wrong on it. So use maps every time, but next time you write a ticket, make sure when you write that address that you pulled up your service map or your GIS or whatever. That's what we're catching cops not doing because they think homeless. Oh, there's some guy. There's some criminal in there. They should be out there anyways. So what we've noticed also is that it's not just a camping ticket. It's a park curfew ticket. It's a constructing a structure ticket. It's a tent ticket, or anything like that. But they can't even write those tickets correctly anyways. So they don't use the elements, because if you write a constructing structure ticket in a natural area, you have to actually be in the natural area. If you're not in the natural area, like if not in the park, then that ticket's moot. And that's what we're catching most of these officers doing, is just missing one or two of these elements, thinking that they have to move forward. The guy's always going to try and claim that he's trying to get out of it, but he's not. He's not trying to get out of it. And so it's just scary. My brother and I found someone that got a ticket on private property, a trespassing ticket, and a solicitation in the public right-of-way. That's the name of the statute. How can you get those two together? You can't, because there is no street. Because that whole law was written for roads, public right-of-ways. So I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they managed to wrap their mind around that, but I don't think that's probable cause. I don't think that's going to hold up in court, because one proves the other wrong. So if you're in public right-of-way, you can't be trespassing. If you're trespassing, you're in public right-of-way. But hey, that's what I'm watching out for. That's why I love this conversation, because you're a good one that I caught before. Maybe you went and did something silly. We just have a low trust level, and Walmart is the breeding ground because of everyone's. It's different from the Sam's Club, like you were saying.
Right.
People have said, and that makes sense if it is a membership only Walmart store. Whatever. But anyway, we can talk forever. I'll probably see you around.
All right.
This town is freaking awesome. We're from Fort Collins. It's hell up there.
You take care.
You do.